Singer-songwriters have a way of capturing our hearts and spirits with the music and the song that they create. We remember special moments by music, we're reminded of special people by music, and we're inspired to try again by a piece of specifically selected music. So it's always in the background of what we're doing. And today my guest is Ainsley Hamill for a second time, and I'm so happy about that. And Ainsley has been traveling, performing, and writing for many years, and she has many accolades. Hello, Ainsley, and thank you for coming to share today with us.
Hello, it's very nice to be speaking with you again.
I'm going to share a little bit of some of the quotes about her career so that you can have a taste as a listener to the kinds of things that Ainsley has done. So, the Guardian album of the month, Not Just Shipland, said her voice, thick with velvet and murk, hovering between the comforting warmth of the breath and the whip-smart forlornness of early Adele. Hamill has a big, intriguing voice, and its Scottishness ever present. Isn't that delightful? I love all the words in that quote. It's fabulous. One of the best of her generation is what R&R magazine has written. And mix Heather Small and Julie Fawless, and you've got a singer-songwriter, one of the UK's leading and most diverse singers. Ainsley has a long list of nods, including the BBC Radio Scotland Young Traditional Music of the Year finalist and Gaelic Singer of the Year finalist at the MG Alba Scots Traditional Music Awards. She represented Scotland at Eurovision in Gothenburg and has appeared at folk festivals the world over, including the Festival Interceltic de Lorient, I hope I said that correctly, and Celtic Connections, where she's been for the last 10 years. All right, so you have an album, Not Just Shipland, that was released in 2021. And today we're going to dive into your next album. What's the title of it?
So this is the first time I'm actually telling anybody anything about this. So it's
I have
actually
the
called
inside secret.
Fable. I know. So the album, it's called Fable, and
Mhm.
it took me a minute to get there. Actually, I don't know, I don't really know why. I think this felt really personal, this release, and I actually really, really like it. And it's actually just a collection of songs that I was incredibly fond of, and I just wanted to showcase things that I loved, you know, and obviously, you need to be sensible about what you're putting on the album. Obviously, I wanted it to be balanced between Gaelic and English, my own songs, traditional songs, Scots. Like I wanted it to show what my live show is like. Because I feel every album I've brought out, bar Belle of the Bottle, which was my first solo release in 2019, I felt that's more akin to a live show, but it only has 5 tracks. And how can you get a feel for an artist with 5 tracks? So
Mhm.
this is the first solo album that I've brought out that really encapsulates my live show. So it seems really important, you know. Um, and I decided on the title Fable. Well, one, because it sounds great and mystical. And I've always been very, very fond of fables, actually, since I was a little girl. Funnily enough, the last time I spoke about my Gran Ferguson, and it was actually her that bought me um, a book of tales that, short tales, but they turned out to be short fables. I remember reading it and reading it and reading it. I don't like rereading books. I feel once I've had it, the story but every time you read them, there's something more that can be taken from it. And I
Mhm.
kind of feel the same about folk songs and folklore in general. There's always some sort of learning to be taken from it. So it might not be exactly a fable, you know, but there's lessons and knowledge to be taken from all that is in our tradition. So that's how I came to the name Fable for the album.
Wow. And as I'm thinking about where we're going to go today with how we've set this conversation up, it just fits so beautifully. Um, So I'm just going to remind the listeners that we did talk before. So if people want to go back to the archives for the podcast, we talked about grieving, and we had
Mm,
a long discussion about the impact of the people that influence us and how we journey our lives together. And
yeah.
so I invite people to go and have a listen to that one if they're interested. But the second part then is we've also decided to set up this conversation as an exploration into the inside of music. And we've brought along the piece that I'm bringing into this, which is the Harmony Blends tea and the coasters. So before we dive any deeper into our conversation, now that we know we're looking at fables and storytelling and some mystical pieces within that and the writing, Ainsley, which tea blend have you got in your teacup today?
So I'm very excited to tell you that I have got Island Vitality from the Cape Breton Tea Company, which I'm very excited about. It's a beautiful blue colour in my cup. I'm very excited about it.
And do you want to share your cup with everyone too?
Yeah, go on then. Very pretty. It's got a lovely little A on it. And actually the handle kind of matches the tea, which I'm also very excited about. Also, you might see Bobby, he's in the background. He's just bobbing up and down back there.
So that's her beautiful puppy, and he's up on the bed and he's trying to be good.
Yes, he's trying very hard.
Trying very hard. For those people that couldn't see her mug, it's white, but it has beautiful flowers and a big A on it, and it's colorful. And
Yes.
one of the things that people say to me, the difference between a tea sommelier and a tea artist. And one of the things, a tea sommelier knows a lot about tea and
Mm.
the subtleness. And I am getting the subtleness, but I didn't want to train in that direction. I wanted to train towards art. And so the color of the tea is so important. And just how you described how it made you feel to just the blue came up and what it meant to you. And that's the cool part about being an artist,
Mhm.
is that experience of the color and then how you can hold it. Because yes, you can hold on to the handle, which you did do, but you also put your hand underneath it. And it's like, yeah, here's my mug of blue.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it.
So I have that Island Vitality is on the Harmony Blends at the end. So it's where after you've got new ideas and everything percolating, it's like what you do next with those ideas. And
Mm.
it's how you're going to expand the possibilities and go beyond what you ever imagined. So as we're starting to talk about what's going to happen with this new album and
Uh-huh.
its release, you don't know that yet. Where's
Oh,
it going to go? So we're setting the stage for the possibilities of all that can be dreamed about it. So that's
oh, I love
fantastic.
that. That's very apt, Michelle. This is going well so far.
So my tea is the Bredor Sunset, which is at the total opposite end. So this would be down in the roots, and so we're really creating, and music does that too. With the way that you work with music, you've got the history of the Celtic music. You have the way that you weave in and out of Gaelic and English, and
Hmm.
then you've got the fables that are coming out. And then what are those stories that you really want to enrich? So with the Bredor Sunset, that brings us down into our root and really grounds us, creates the roots that go out beneath us, and then help us to nurture and build that tree of life that we have. The phrase on here is put yourself at ease as you center into the golden memories that rejuvenate and inspire you. So
No, that's lovely.
and I wanted to highlight sage today. So I always try to pull out one of the herbs. So sage is about making a connection to the spiritual journey or experience. It provides insights and supports the journey. They can support spiritual dilemmas. And for many striving to clear old baggage and move forward with a soulful purpose, the addition of sage can be really empowering.
Hmm.
Yeah. So with
Interesting.
that, I'm going to say cheers. And
Yeah.
I can tilt mine up. Nope, it's gonna spill. So mine is bright, bright orange. So you've got blue, purple, and I've got bright orange. So cheers.
Lunches, lunch of all.
Mm. Oh my gosh. Okay. Now, the other part I wanted to bring forward for people, and again, it's because of the content of what Ainsley and I get to talk about today. I wanted to just bring focus to the harmony coasters. And the coasters were designed so that you could pour your cup of tea or your water, you put the coaster underneath, and it's got art that's been infused with energy, ideas, herbs, all in a little package. And what I've discovered with these beautiful coasters is they take you on a voyage from the beginning of something to the end where you have your transformation. And I've been pulling them for conversations to find out where we are in the conversation. At the end of the conversation, I've been pulling a card again to find out how far along that experience did we go.
Mm,
And not that you have to get to the end, it's just how did you transform in that conversation? And most people don't think about that.
right.
So for those people on the call today, I'm going to pull up the first card, which is understanding the situation. It could be a trauma, but it could also just be where you are. And I'm thinking about Ainsley with the Fables and that real initial discussion about storytelling and how much is embedded with those stories and the importance of the retelling, because that continues to provide insight. And Sage is on this card, so insight and perspective. Faith, trust, and resiliency, stepping forward free from expectations and judgment, ready for life to be transformed and empowered. And for
Mm,
those that are on the podcast version, not the video version, there's multiple colors on here, pink, blue, yellow, white, and there's little tiny orbs everywhere. When we start to think about what those fables offer, those can be the stories, but also the people that might be behind them.
mm,
And Ainsley and I have a card that we pulled before for our conversation. This one takes us to the root, and I'm holding up a blue card, which it almost looks like wings or a
mm.
butterfly. That's what some people have described it as. And I'm just going to say it has the note of sea and ginger, strength and power for change. So, as you're listening to this conversation today, make sure you're sipping on your cup of tea and get ready to think about how storytelling and fables might be more important in your life than you thought. All
Mm.
right, Ainsley. So we've got the idea of fables. Do you want to talk a little bit about the development of your music as a
Mm.
young person coming into a career and how you've just played with the music so far?
I mean, like, so I've always wanted, I'm not joking, Michelle, at school. I remember, like when people ask you, what would you like to be when you grow up? You know, and you're meant, I don't know what you're meant to say. Like, surely what you actually want to be, so people are like, I want to be a vet or I want to be a doctor, right? Whatever it was, right? And I remember since the age of like 4, when people start asking that, I remember I want to be a singer, a dancer, and an actress. And actually, adults would laugh in my face. I remember being like, why are you laughing at me? That is genuinely, I don't understand where the hilarity is coming from because that's what I wanted to be.
Mm-hmm.
And that has never, ever changed. And I don't know why, since a very young age, like that's, maybe it's because people were like, ha ha ha, that is hilarious. That was like, I'll show you. And
Yes.
that's why I'm doing music today. No, but I think there was just an extreme love uh for performance. I remember I used to do dancing in the village where I come from, so Cardress in Argyll and in Scotland. And like, literally since the age of 3, I just wanted to be on the stage, like doing the dances and taking it really seriously. Like not getting up on the stage and like waving to my mum and my granny. Do you know what I mean? It's
Yep.
like doing it properly. And I don't know, it's just so kind of all stuck with me, that feeling that you get when you're on the stage. It actually fuels me, so people say, like what inspires you? Literally what inspires me is that feeling I get when I perform, and when people get a good feeling and love what I do, that is really fueling for me. So then, from a young age, I took piano lessons from the most amazing lady called Rosemary Wilson. And she was an older lady when she took me for lessons. And I still see her driving about in her car in Cardress. And she was very inspiring. And she used to have summer concerts. Um, the baking was insane. I've never had a scone like it. So good. And I remember she would say, Ainsley, play your piano pieces, but then I would like you to sing and I'll accompany you on the piano, so we could do things that were, I guess, a little harder. And from that, I got asked to do the Cayleys in the village, as in like the visiting type of Ceilidh, like a
Mhm.
concert and a Ceilidh dance. And then from there, I got asked to do other Keeleys and other things. And then that led on to me, being very, very deeply interested in traditional music and Gaelic song. And I did get Gaelic song at school with the choir. And some teachers were very interested in Gaelic, and that's how I got into that. And then obviously I went to the conservatoire. Um, and I also been to like theatre schools and, RSAMD juniors, and that very much probably helped my confidence as well. So it's like this all-round education of stage performance. It's not just centered around music and dancing. It's all encompassing. And I don't think many people know that about me. Like I have a great interest in all things theatrical and performance and creative. I think people just think of me as a singer, which rightly so, because that is my main practice. Um, yeah, but I would consider myself like a wee bit more than that, because for me it's about the performance. So that's kind of in a nutshell, uh, to where I am now.
Mm. I'm thinking about, we wanted to get inside the music and um, the explorations of what comes through. And what's interesting with taking a background like that is a lot of people take their music lesson and then
Mm,
they join a band and then they go out and they perform, but they're not thinking about the whole show. They're
mm,
thinking about what kind of musical performance will they do? How do they fit within the band? But there
right,
is so much else that goes on to create the experience for people and
right.
and the experience also for you as the performer, because you're no longer just the music. I don't want to say it and belittle anything because musicians work so
No.
hard to develop their craft, but when you're standing on the stage and you're being a musician, you're standing on the stage and you're creating a theatrical piece. And then I'm just thinking about how it's easier sometimes how you reach out to your audience, the way you want to pan the audience, how you want to feel within it. Do you want to talk a little bit about that for you?
Yeah, I think for me, I'm going to enjoy the performance and feel fueled by it if the audience have enjoyed it. So I'm always thinking, okay, what's the best set list and show for this specific performance and audience? So I've got my show, but things can be tweaked and moved around. Maybe one could be cut and replaced with something else that's more suitable. So I'm always thinking of it from an audience perspective because ultimately I want to please the audience. I want to make a really successful show um, without losing any authenticity to myself. I think that's really important um, because I think like all the songs and the creations are authentically me. So then it's like, how do I use that to create the best performance for the audience?
Mm-hmm.
And it also comes down to things like costume, like what you're wearing, how you're presenting, what do the lights look like, what's the overall sound like, it's like my brain's like a million miles an hour, you know. And I
Hmm.
think my band are also extremely helpful with that as well. They're always very honest with me and will give, you know, their honest opinion, which I very much appreciate. Because I think a lot of times like bands can quite easily just sit in the background and be like, yeah, yeah, cool. I'll just do whatever you say, you're the boss, do you know?
Hmm.
But actually to work together and make the show as best as it can be, you know, that's super important uh, for me. Obviously, I'm thinking about like the quality of the music.
Hmm.
I'm always very concerned about that. I'm never blasé. I could never be underprepared going into a show. I
Hmm.
can never be that person that rocks up and just does it.
Hmm.
Everything very, very thought out. You know,
Hmm.
that's why I sometimes would say I even struggle with a session. I feel like people might not be totally honest about, you know, like going to sessions because
Hmm.
I feel, right, the expectation is you should have this wealth of knowledge and that you should rock up to a session and be able to sing like really old traditional songs or really well-known songs or whatever. But that takes a lot of work getting to that and it's made to look like it's off the cuff. I'm like, oh, that's rubbish. Do you know what I mean? You've sat
Yep.
and practiced that really, really hard or sat and learned those words so you can come here today and do that.
Hmm.
Do you know? So I think there should be more transparency about sessions. It's but obviously some people just go to a session and pick up tunes. I'm not saying that. But I mean, you know, like the people like exactly what I just said. You know, like it takes a lot of preparation to do stuff well. And like I think that helps folk that are trying to learn
Hmm.
also because it's wrong to portray it as, oh yeah, I just rock up, I don't care. I'm just naturally very talented, you know. No, it doesn't work like that. Got to really put the time in. And
Hmm.
I say that because so in my new show, I play the harmonium. You can kind of see it just literally right there.
Hmm.
It's absolutely the bane of my life, right? Because although I can play the piano and I have done for many, many years, I find it very off-putting doing something else when I'm singing.
Hmm.
And it's made me realize how much energy and brain power I put into my singing performance.
Hmm.
Because then I'm thinking, oh God damn it, I forgot I was even playing the bloody harmonium. Do you know? It's like trying to split my mind is incredible. So I've got a lot of respect for people that maybe like play intricate parts and sing at the same time. But I
Hmm.
think, you know, my practice is singing, you know, so like or I should say being a vocalist actually. You know, and the intricacies of that. And I don't think, but correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think you can be exceptional at both. I think you can be really good, but I
Hmm.
don't think you can be mind-blowingly exceptional
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
you can't split your energy. I certainly can anyway. I really
Hmm.
am in awe of people that do it. I
Hmm.
really, um, you know, so that's a new aspect to the show as well, and I think it adds a lot, and it's fun. And Alistair Ian Patterson, my keys player, you know, when we do the bigger band stuff, it kind of frees him up and he can do more impressive things on the piano and, you know, whatnot. And, you know, other guys as well, like Sam Kelly and Toby Sher, who are in my band, it lets them uh, do more things and while I'm just droning away.
I'm thinking about muscle memory. And so
Ah,
if you learn the tune by playing the piano,
mhm,
that muscle memory has a movement that's involved with the vocals. So then if you change to a different instrument, if that instrument isn't as intuitive as the piano is, then it has a different muscle memory it has to create. And I just
mm,
know from Tai Chi, I learned Tai Chi standing, and now I do it seated, but I have my standing head on while I'm trying to remember how the set moves are going to go. And so
Right,
even out of my mouth will come twist step. And it's like we're not stepping anywhere, but
right.
that's the cue that's always been there. And
Mm,
it's taken me a long time to get to the place where I almost could consider a seated set in my head, but it's
right.
still controlled by that standing form.
Yeah,
So,
that's very interesting. It's incredible how much muscle memory plays into it. And um, yeah, it just takes years and years for that to settle in,
mhm,
and I think that's why, like, I respect performers so much, especially performers that are doing things that are changing all the time. You're never
mhm,
in a place of comfort,
mhm,
you know, um, and that is very unsettling, can also be extremely exciting.
mhm,
So it's good to have a mixture of things that are very much set in stone. You feel comfortable doing them, or you could change them around and, make it a little bit spicier for yourself,
mhm,
So I guess, variety is the spice of life, isn't it? So it's nice to have, that mixture. Um,
mhm,
I've got to say it's been really, really nice to be able to accompany myself while I'm practicing my own
mhm,
set. So I've been doing a lot of solo practice, and actually the benefits of that are huge for me. Sometimes I
mhm,
can find myself being so busy that I don't sing. And in a week, I would maybe get to the weekend and think, I've not really sang. And that's a terrible feeling. And then you sing for literally 10 minutes and it makes you feel wonderful.
mhm,
So I
mhm,
find it's making me practice more, which is it's just like a total new perspective change up on things, which
mhm,
is lovely.
mhm, mhm. And when you pick up that different instrument, even if it's a song you've known for a long time, you discover new things about that song because of the instrument.
That's so true. It actually makes you look at the song differently. You think, oh,
Interesting.
like or if actually, if I'm playing the instrument, sometimes I have to think of the song in a different format.
Mhm,
Really messes with my brain, you know. Like sometimes I imagine nearly like a video playing out of the story.
mhm,
But then when I'm playing the instrument, I can't think of it like that.
mhm,
And then I start to sing lines differently because my mind isn't in the same place. And I think, how strange. And then I can't remember how I did it before. It's like it's a forever evolving thing, which
mhm,
is such a bizarre feeling as well. When you go back and listen to old versions of songs,
mhm,
how I perform them now. I think that's incredible. I didn't even know I'd changed that, and it actually just shows like how much things change within like oral tradition, you
mhm,
know. You're not even aware you're doing it. It's just very organic.
mhm,
If
mhm.
people say, that happens over hundreds of years, you kid me, on it could happen within the space of like a week. If you add a new instrument in, you think about it differently. So it's
Yeah,
mad.
yeah. But it's really lovely to know then, because as just when you were saying the fables too, that when you're listening to that story the first time, you're listening with one head,
Yeah.
with one idea in mind, which might be just to hear the story. But the next time you hear the story, because you remember bits and pieces about it, and you're like, I want to go back through that. But now you're in a completely different space, and it just transforms.
Mm.
Um,
The
yeah.
other as well, you're saying muscle memory. Sometimes you just sing the song and you love the song because you love how it makes you feel, but you forget the meaning sometimes. You forget actually this line means this. And funnily enough, like the first time when I'm learning a song, I'm really thinking like if the song's really sad, it does really affect me. So I'm always nervous about singing like a song that isn't within my muscle memory, if it's really sad, because it makes me feel sad.
Hmm.
Because if I don't believe it when I'm saying it,
Hmm.
then it's not authentic. Do you know, like it's yeah. But then
Hmm.
as that travels into your muscle memory, it's you're not thinking about it so much all the time. And
Hmm.
then when you think, gosh, what is that again? Now I've brought another element and I need to go back. I can't even remember that line now, or what was that? And you revisit those feelings all over again. And then actually, as you get older or time moves on or whatever, you take different meaning from it than what you originally did. So
Hmm.
I think that's really cool.
Hmm.
I like that. I've found that that's happened quite a lot recently,
Hmm. Hmm.
because there was a collection that I brought out with Kenna Campbell, the Tommy collection, and it's called Gunshida Gunyeri, and it's based on the Francis Tommy collection. It basically fills in the gaps from her original manuscripts, and it was Kenna Campbell's idea, amazing Gaelic singer and teacher. She was my teacher when I was at the conservatoire in Glasgow. And it's an amazing book. So I'm thinking back, like pre-release, right? So we're 10, 15 years ago and learning all these songs, right? It was like a mid-term recital and like what they meant to me then. And now I'm recording them to go on this Fable album. And I'm like, that's so mad. That is a total different sentiment. Singing them differently. I'm thinking on them differently. That is amazing to me. You get snapshots of how it felt to sing it 15 years ago,
Hmm.
and then it feels like you are that person 15 years ago. You think, I just wouldn't do it like that anymore. Very interesting.
Hmm. Hmm. I'm thinking for the audience, I know my mother-in-law said at one point if she'd seen somebody already, she didn't need to go see that performance again because she'd already seen them. She was done. Move on to the next thing.
Right.
But as you're talking about preparing that playlist for that show and for
Mm.
that audience, you're already intuitively working at who's going to be appearing and how are
Mm.
they going to need me to present it and how am I going to unroll it. So the experience they have at the end is that complete lift up when they go out the door. And one
Totally.
song could be the finishing song one time, but it can't be for the next audience because it might be for the next audience that down pull and you want that lift up at the end. It's really interesting for those people, and I'm sure those who've followed bands and they've heard them over and over and over and realizing those nuances. But then also for the audience members to think about when they're choosing their shows and they're choosing who they want to see or how they want to see them in a pub setting or on a bigger stage or out in the garden somewhere, outdoor concert, that's going to change the experience and then that's going to change their outcome with the music.
Big time. Yeah, I think that is super important. Like every time you see a musician, it should it should feel different because they're in a different place,
Mm-hmm.
mind, creative setting. Yeah, I totally agree with that.
So when you put Fable together,
Hmm.
how did you lay out the way you wanted those stories to go?
So it's super interesting. So I was saying that, like I've tried to base it off my live show, and then obviously I wanted there to be a representation of who I am. So it's a mixture of English and Scottish Gaelic and Scots. That's who I am as a person. That's what my live show is. And for so many years I thought, oh, I want people to know me as a Gaelic singer, and then I go back to, oh, I want people to know me as like a songwriter, or oh, who cares? Do you know what I mean? Really, at the end of the day, who cares? as long as I know what I'm putting forward, folk can take away what they want from it. That's the beauty of it, isn't it?
Hmm.
So I was trying to think, okay, how is it going to be nice and balanced? I want a mix of highs and lows and both dynamics and emotion, So what I did was I chose my traditional songs first. So most of the Gaelic ones are from the Tommy collection
Hmm.
because that has um, really taken up space in my brain for about 15 years now, right? So all of these Gaelic songs have been literally ping-ponging about my brain and I just can't get rid of them. So I thought I'm going to have to record some of them. The ones that I did record are no joke, the ones that were my favourite from that midterm recital in my third year of the Royal Conservatoire, and that wasn't yesterday. So that was 2012
Hmm.
and I've never recorded them. And I thought that is mad. Like these songs actually feel part of my being now.
Hmm.
Record them, you know. And I think it's because I've had so much respect for the collection, do that I wanted it to be really good when I did do it.
Hmm.
And I think now's the time, you know.
Hmm.
And and then I thought, okay, I want a wee bit of Scots in there. Like, what's a good song? And actually, it was the way that I was thinking about the album, like how I wanted it to come across and be balanced. There's this song so Toby Share is in my band. He's super talented and plays for lots of people like Cara Dillon and uh, John McCusker and whatever, right? And well, we both love the John Doyle song, The Arabic. I
Hmm.
don't know if you know it, but it's a fantastic song. And it's got a really, really great guitar part. And the joke is, we could be performing like whatever song, really sad, and then he hits right into the Arabic and it's funny, and then we start singing that like in a practice or whatever. And literally, we've done it for years. And I said, like, why do we not do a song like this? So I actually went on a mission to find a song that was sat in that sort of similar space, mode wise, key wise, uh, you know, and so we could have that feel. So actually, the Scott song on the album is very much inspired by John Doyle's The Arabic, because I felt it filled a space in the album that I really wanted filled. And for me as well, creatively, I was like, I want to do something like that, which is quite unusual for me because I wouldn't usually operate like that.
Hmm.
I'd just do something totally random or based on a stimulus, like a biography of a person. That's how I
Hmm.
usually work, you know.
Hmm.
So I took a really different direction. Not just Shetland was all based off of biographies, people and places. So I find that really easy to write like that.
Hmm.
Somebody or something as a stimulus and talking
Hmm.
about their story because I love stories. Yeah. And so this time it took a different turn. And then I thought, okay, so where are we at now? We've got these Gaelic songs, we've got the Scots song that I wanted in that fills that sort of area, that mode. What are we missing? So some of my own songs, that's what we're missing. I want it to be based on Scotland, folklore, tales, you know, places that are important to me in Scotland. Again, we're going back to people and places, but just from a different perspective.
Hmm.
That's when I hit on one of my favourite songs from the album, actually. It's called Macher Bay. So Macher Bay is actually on the Isle of Isla. And I went one day, actually with my husband, and we had the most magical experience. like the sun hung so low in the sky and the moon was out at the same time, and the thick, thick mist was sitting directly on top of the water.
Mhm.
And honestly, it made it look like we were on another planet. It was genuinely otherworldly, you know, and that's what I based Mahad Bay off of. And then there's another song called The Cailleach, so the legend of the Cailleach, like bringer of winter, and um, she's cruel to be kind, as in if everything was to continue to grow and flourish, then it becomes overgrown. You have too much of a good thing. I know,
Mhm.
and it means that you've got to kind of miss it to know what's good for you, when it comes back.
Mhm.
Um, so like another sort of legend there as well. Um, so I'm very much attached to folklore storytelling, people, legends. I started to see a theme emerging out of what I was naturally picking, and I thought, gosh, from the last album, from this album, and then generally looking at my interests, I thought, I just love stories, you know. So that I would say is what this album is very, very much based around, but quintessentially Scottish at its very, very core.
Mhm. Mhm.
I guess because I am.
Even though you're transplanted.
Yeah.
and, as people are listening, I know they end up pulling one song out,
Mm,
and albums, it's harder to listen for a whole album.
mm,
And so I'm just going to invite people listening that if you're hearing the singles that get released for this album, to go and really dive into the whole piece so you get the full picture and the full story that this album creates. And
mm.
then have a journey for yourself with the music as you've set it up so that they come out of the whole thing, changed, transformed because of their experience.
Totally. Yeah. Like I want people to love the stories as much as I love the stories.
Mm-hmm.
There's another one uh about the Echushke. It's called Cua Naichushke, so Lament of the Water Horse. And just the folklore behind the water horse is so intriguing to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like it exists in a lot of traditions. Uh, it says, like the water horse can take on any form. And in this case, it takes on the form of a man and marries this lady Morak. And they have a child. And then she realizes that he is, in fact, a water horse and kidding on. But actually, he still has real feelings for her and the child. But she runs away. And the song is him calling out to her. That
Mm-hmm.
just actually gives me goosebumps.
Mm-hmm.
It has done for many, many years. Like I remember we go on like a holiday, like I don't know, like up kind of maybe like Dorney, or go to like Eilean and Castle and Skye and whatnot. And we used to go to Wester Ross a lot, go to like Gairloch. And in Gairloch there was this little kind of my mum and dad used to call it the witchy shop. And
Mm-hmm.
I used to absolutely love it. I used to go and buy things like tea, incense sticks, beautiful crystals and books, and I just had the absolute time of my life in that shop. Like that was the highlight of my holiday. And I always used to buy a book that spoke about like the legends of the folklore, or I would buy a song book, or then that was my holiday money gone, in this shop. So from a very, very, very early age, it's always been about like kind of feelings and stories, and like how do the stories make you feel? That, see that little bit of magic, that kind of gets your hackles up a wee bit, that
Mm-hmm.
that's that is what this album makes me feel like. Yeah, so it's very special to me.
And how do you bring your bandmates in as you're preparing to take this on the road?
Well, actually, we had when we were recording the album, we had a really lovely time. My in-laws stay in North Connell, and they were actually away seeing our family in America. And they said, why don't you use the house? And at that time, yeah, I was going through a difficult time because I lost my gran, as we spoke about on the last time we got together. And my band were saying, Ainsley, you don't need to do this. My producer, Sam Kelly, who's an amazing singer, songwriter, performer as well. He's like, you don't need to do this. Like, we can delay it. And I was like, no, we need to do it. All the conditions are correct. We have to do this. And I'm really glad we did. Because North Cornwall, very inspiring. It's right on Loch Etive. And it was a beautiful time and we all came together. And it was a very intense period um, because of what was happening to me at the time. I wasn't able to give my band a long lead-in time,
Hmm.
which I would like to do. I would like everybody to have everything well in advance of meeting up so they don't feel harassed or, can let things percolate. So I was a little worried about that. I don't like putting folk under pressure like that. But then we got together and it was amazing how everyone just gelled. Because actually, this is kind of a new band. It's people that I've performed with for a long time, but in different settings.
Hmm.
For instance, like so Alice Loreen Patterson, who's on keys, and Signe, who plays percussion, Signe Jacob's daughter. She is amazing, like percussion, all the magical little bits and bobs, tune percussion and whatnot. And we played together in Barlua, my first ever band. Then obviously for Bella Ball release, I worked with Toby Share. And then I did a project with my Danish agent that brought musicians, like his favourite musicians together to celebrate 10 years of the agency. And that's how I started working with Sam Kelly. So I brought everybody together for this project. And this has now become my quite core band. Um, and it's amazing. It's just amazing, to have all those people that I really trust and really value come together.
Hmm.
Like for me, it's mad for me that they hadn't all played together before.
Hmm.
Because I value them all so much and trust them all quite explicitly also. So to have them to come together in jail, it felt very like full circle, probably just for me, probably for nobody else, but it felt special and wonderful. And they did gel very, very well and got on very well. And I think you will be able to tell by the quality of their playing on the album. Uh, I think that just reinforces, what I've just said, that
Hmm.
the way they gel together, it's incredible.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, it's a bit of a situation, but it's turned out well.
And it's interesting because it's your journey with music that led you to all of these different people. And like you said, being able to do things in different directions, but then to take all of those gifts that you've discovered about them and to be
Mm.
able to bring them together in one room and see what magic happens out of that. I'm just saying that for the audience to think about some of the things they might be doing on their own, where they have lots of friends in different pockets of their life. And then when they start to pull them together, what is possible? What's different? If you always get together with the book club and do something, and you always do an evening together, going out for dinner with certain groups of people. But what happens if you start to really shift that around
Do you
and
know
into
that's really so meaningful, actually. because a lot of people like to keep that separate. They like to keep the different pockets of their life separate.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, do you know what? I could fall under that category sometimes because it feels simpler that way in a
Mm-hmm.
busy world. But you're so right, like the magic that happens when you merge those worlds and have the confidence to merge the worlds
Mm-hmm.
as well, because it does lie on you if you're the one.
If you're
Like,
organizing, yep. Yeah.
yeah, and I think you have to also accept that if it doesn't work out, then that's totally okay as well.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You know?
But you never know what magic's going to come out of that, where two people meet for the first time,
Mhm.
and all of a sudden they're taken into a new place.
Totally.
And where
I
will
think
they
that,
take that? Yeah.
yeah. Well, yeah, absolutely. I think it's so important. And through doing this, like seeing how successful that was, like me bringing people together, it's given me a little bit more confidence to do it more because I
Mm-hmm.
generally don't quite
Mm-hmm.
reserved in that world.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I guess like if you're listening and you've been thinking about doing it, then just do it.
Mm-hmm. One of the things I did in the last session that I did for my chi integration class was, instead of me instructing and continuing down my road of discovery with the students that I've been working with, and their road of discovery, not just mine, um, I went to some of the people who have incredible tools that we know each other, but we haven't really interacted all that much. We've
Right.
talked about bits and pieces, but I invited them to come in and share some of their knowledge. But I also then offered to them some of the tools that I use within that program. And so even though they hadn't been in the program, they got those pieces. But
Mm,
what happened was incredible magic every week. As
mm,
this new person came into the fold of discovery, they had no idea what the group had been doing before that. So they brought their piece in, but that group immediately just enveloped them. And then, the conversations that came around and the discoveries of how that tool could go further, even though
right.
it's already very impactful. But
Mhm.
anyway, it was
Yeah,
a really interesting way for me to interact with the healers that I do work with, but don't, I didn't get to go sit in on all their classes and take their courses necessarily.
right.
Um, yeah, yeah.
That's really interesting. It's really powerful as well. I think it's a really good thing to do to kind of let go of things and let other people in and let them lead. And yeah, it's a good thing to do.
And then I know when you're working with the band, too, what they're bringing to your song. So you have an idea where you want it to go, but that gelling of them, one person says, "Oh, I think you should add this," and then all of a sudden, this spark goes in somebody else, and
Oh,
new direction.
it's utter magic when that happens. Like, I always want to hear my band out or whoever I'm working with. I want to hear you out because, like, obviously, I've got quite a firm idea in my mind about how the song should be, but how it's accompanied is another thing completely,
Mhm.
right? So it's like I wouldn't have brought you in if I didn't value your opinion,
Mhm.
so talk to me. I always stay very loosey-goosey, maybe right to the end when things are starting to form, because the talent that they have is incredible. And I want them to work with me and bring all that to the table and for elements of all of them to shine through as well.
Mhm.
That's important for me also. So like Sam, Toby, Alistair, and Signe are all extremely talented. Ewan Burton is on the album as well. He actually recorded it. He plays bass and just like extremely talented, working all together. Yeah, and I want them to come to me like, Ainsley, I think this would be a really good starting point for the arrangement. And then we'll work on it from there. Again, sometimes I've got really firm ideas of how I want it to sound, but usually I try and be as loosey-goosey as I possibly can be. Because if I dictate things all the time, it's not exciting. It's not exciting for me.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
can't tell you the magic that I feel when I hear the song being arranged and taking shape.
Mhm.
Because like the power of an arrangement is incredible. You know, you could change the whole meaning of the song the way it's arranged.
Mhm.
Uh, and that's also another thing, like Signe Alistair, Sam and Toby, who I worked with originally, you know, to arrange everything. Um, and also Claire and Scott, Mackenzie and Scott Gilmore from Noisemaker as well. We
Mhm.
co-wrote some songs also, which is the first time I've ever done that. I don't usually feel comfortable giving over myself.
Mhm.
I'm very much a solo songwriter.
Mhm.
I thought, be brave and try and co-write this because you don't know what's going to come out of it. And it
Mhm.
was so
Mhm.
successful. That's how we created the song The Cailleach,
Mhm.
you know, and I'm so glad I kind of let go of all those fears and did that. So I
Mhm.
feel this album is actually very collaborative
Mhm.
and saying, okay, let go of trying to be a control freak over this and
Mhm.
let everybody's ideas seep in and make it be this really wonderful and original thing.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I
Mhm.
feel actually the album is kind of uh, maybe shows like my growth as I'm getting older.
Mhm.
I don't think my husband would agree, but I think I'm maybe getting a little more relaxed. You know, maybe my band wouldn't agree either. But yeah, because I like things just so. I like things that are really, really high standard, you know, but so
Mhm.
do my band. So that's
Mhm.
probably why we get
Mhm.
on so well.
So, from the songs that are on the album, which one was your biggest surprise?
Oh, my biggest surprise from when we were arranging it.
It could be from anything. It could be the arrangement.
I think that there's two that are really sticking out to me.
Mhm.
Um, Macher Bay. I remember sitting down in a park near my house and I actually went there because I was like, I need to get out of the house. I need to write a song today. This day cannot pass without me
Without a
writing
song
a
coming
song,
out.
right? Because it had been weeks and I was like, this is ridiculous. You're never going to have a new album if you don't write a bloody song, right? So then I went to the park with my new wee notebook, and actually the notebook was from the Lefroy distillery,
Mhm.
right? Literally a blank notebook and pen. That was the most stupid thing I could ever have done, right? It's uninspiring writing on a totally blank notebook. I was listening to loads of songs and thinking, oh my God. And I sort of like kind of threw the notebook on the ground, right, to sort of lie down on my belly because I thought I need a change of sort of scenery. I need to move things around. And the notebook opened um to the notebook's got pictures in it, which I never knew. And it's of Isla in the Lefroy distillery. And I thought, oh God, and it made me remember that's when I bought the notebook.
Mhm.
And then that wonderful day we had at Macher Bay. And it got me thinking, I thought, God, that was a bloody great day. And then I just started writing things down that I remembered about the day and the nice time that we had.
Mhm.
You know, so, and I think Macher Bay is my favourite track from the whole album. So from me going to the park that day being like, write a bloody song. Doesn't matter what it is, just write something. Do you know?
Mhm.
It being my favourite thing on the album is quite incredible.
Mhm.
And then it
Mhm.
was actually Claire Mackenzie that came up with the hook. It's like a little sung hook. Um, and then the band just make it amazing. And I just think, man, never in a million years did I think that was going to be like that when I sat in that park that day.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm so surprised by that. And that feels amazing to me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Beautiful. And you said something interesting in that you chose a notebook that was completely blank.
hmm
In your
hmm
mind, it was blank, but it wasn't. That's really interesting.
Yeah. I thought how uninspiring this notebook is. And then
Mm-hmm.
I sort of it flopped out my hand type thing. I don't think I threw it down and it opened at the picture, like in a middle page. And I thought, oh, weird, hey, how things just take you.
Yes. And then
Mhm.
you have to be aware and available and open, and then the
hmm
possibilities emerge. Yeah.
hmm Do you know
Yeah.
what I find really interesting, actually? Um, I write my best when I've had a couple of days off
Mm-hmm.
and my mind's really clear
Mm-hmm.
and like I go and do nice things and I get out and see the world and feel emotion and do things.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm in the house and I'm like doing admin or like just stressing myself out, I can't write a song. I just can't do
Mm-hmm.
it. And then
Mm-hmm.
it's hard to remove myself from that when I feel like I've got things to do.
Mm-hmm.
So, and even at that, some days, I could have taken the time off and really thought, okay, concentrate. The only thing you're going to do tomorrow is write the bloody song. It still
Mm-hmm.
can be really hard,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's why I find like, okay, if you've got a really good idea, just write it down and
Mm-hmm.
then you can go back to it. But it's funny, isn't it? Because sometimes you write down those ideas, which I don't do very often, by the way. And then I go back to it, I think, are you insane? Are you like actually mentally unwell? What does that even mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, it's crazy how much your mind can shift. Um, I'm also super taken by one of my other self-penned songs on the album. Um, that has totally surprised me because I said there was two songs actually that
Yeah.
really surprised me. And this one's called The Angels Share, and it's
Mm-hmm.
written whiskey lovers all know what I'm talking about. You know, the reason I know it is because most of my family worked in the whiskey industry.
Mm-hmm.
So the angel share is when the whiskey is put in the barrel and it's put into the warehouse and it's maturing in the barrel. Now you've got an evaporation that happens,
Mm-hmm.
and it's quite funny when people buy barrels of whiskey, they invest in. And it's quite funny, you could go to the barrel and open it when it's matured to whatever level you want it to be at, be it 3 years, so it's Scotch, or 10 or 15, 20, whatever it is. You could go to the barrel and there's nothing left in it because it's all evaporated, right? It's totally your luck what happens. But
Mm-hmm.
most of the time there will be whiskey left, matured whiskey left, but a lot of it will have gone. And the thing that goes and evaporates is called the angel share,
Uh-huh.
which I think is very, very beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And I imagine myself following up after or being with the angel share,
Mm-hmm.
floating up into the atmosphere, which is a totally different concept for me. I don't really write songs like that.
Mm-hmm.
I usually write a song about a person or a place. This was very much about how I was feeling and
Mm-hmm.
about the thought that I just thought of, and I wrote it down, and it's funny that I just had that little passing thought and I literally did a voice memo of how I felt in that moment. And the way I sang it into the voice memo is really the way that it is now.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, edited down and, you know, but the essence of it, the tune, the words are what my original idea was. That's really surprising because I find a song can change hugely. And
Hmm.
actually, it's got a different feel as well in the arrangement. It's the first song Sam Kelly and I worked on together. Um, he said, let's do this song and see how we feel about me being producer. And I thought it was very reasonable. And I said, okay. And I thought it was great. And then obviously we went on to do the rest of the album. But it's got like a tiny little electronic element in it also. It feels kind of outer spacey, a bit astronomical. It's quite different from everything else on the album. So
Hmm.
that really surprised me.
Hmm.
Well, I never thought that was going to take that direction, mixed with all the traditional stuff. But that, and then I sometimes get worried, is that too different, like genre wise? And then I think, actually, I don't care. Like that is who I am. Like, can't change that. So that's what it is. So the album's quite eclectic, I would say. Track to track, very different.
Hmm. I'm thinking for your audience, and again, going back to the idea of listening to the whole album, not just the single songs, but
Right.
that when you're thinking about the angels share and you do think about letting go and even looking from that different perspective, because you've talked about perspective a couple times now.
Mm.
And so people are listening and thinking about how they're doing things in their own lives. Where do we take that other perspective? And that other perspective can be, across the table from someone. I'll go sit where they're sitting and look back. That's one way. But then you have this angel share that just evaporates out. What is it when you look out, you look down, you look back, you look globally? What happens to the action? What happens to the viewpoint? And your audience, how are you going to transform them?
Yeah, that's really lovely, actually. Because I think up until now, genuinely, I'm always very concerned. What do people think of me? What's the perspective of me?
Hmm.
Actually, now I'm starting to look out from different perspectives,
Hmm.
seek more enjoyment from what I'm doing, and trying to learn more from people. So I'm not so worried about me.
Hmm. Yeah.
Uh, just that genuinely believe that this album has actually been quite a huge learning curve, from like how I was feeling when I recorded it. Really quite desperate, desolate, from all the grief that I had experienced
Hmm.
and the difficult time I had experienced before recording it. It really opened my mind.
Hmm.
I think a lot of people were like, don't record it just now. Why would you do that to yourself? And I was like, because it actually makes me feel fearless.
Hmm.
I think if I record this now, I'm going to be authentically myself.
Hmm.
Really changed my outlook. So I feel very thankful for that. I really do. It's been a lovely learning curve.
I love what you just said because it made you fearless. At
Mm,
your most vulnerable time, it made you fearless, and it was the time where you could learn and grow the most. But not in the way of resolving the grief,
no.
in the way of learning more about you. And I think
Yeah.
that's such an epiphany for people who might be sitting in really difficult situations or working on projects that are really challenging.
Right.
And then, you've already said the letting go, change of perspective, bringing in the people who have the know-how, figuring out
Yeah.
how to have the conversation with them, but then seeing what magic happens with that.
Mm,
And just for some, and I'm sure you and I both have lots of things we've done where we gripped on way too tight, and
totally.
then it finished. It was nice, but it wasn't probably as open and as opportunistic as it could have been.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. I can hardly wait. I can hardly wait to hear one, the album, but the second part is how you put your show together. And so
Mm,
as your audience is thinking about coming to see your shows, and what kind of presentations they're in. Because are they in a closed setting? Are they outdoors? Are they at a festival? Because that's going to change the music. But to know that they can really be transformed by the way you took the stories and you brought them to life and the order that you're putting them in.
Mm.
Beautiful. Yeah. Is there anything that we didn't touch that you want to make sure people know about this music?
Just that I care for it deeply, like it feels very personal.
Hmm.
And I just really want people to listen to it. I
Hmm.
think the thing is, like with it's more than likely going to be self-released, and it's very difficult for it to reach people a lot of the time. And it's eclectic, and I would say it's very much based within folk, if you want to put it in a genre. And it is trad, because of the Gaelic and Scots elements, but it feels more than that, you know. And I think maybe people that don't like traditional music would maybe like it. It's yeah, it's very eclectic. It's quite hard to put it within that, like a subgenre within folk.
Hmm.
Um, so I'd say just like listen to it with an open mind and
Hmm.
listen
Hmm.
to the stories and yeah, enjoy.
And then you said self-release. So what
Yeah.
does that mean for those people who aren't in the music field?
So it would mean just that I'm doing it on my own. So instead of doing it with a label,
Hmm.
it's whether a label wants to take it on or whether I'm happy with a label, or it can be a whole range of reasons. All my releases thus far have been self-released.
Hmm.
um with Fourth Moon and Barlua, always self-released, so it would be a different angle, with a label. But ultimately it doesn't affect anything really for the listener. um I would want a label to take it on if they wanted to keep it the way that I want it to be. So
Hmm.
it affects nothing really.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, but yeah, actually next week is the photo shoot, and sort of gearing up for getting everything together, like the artwork and pulling all the notes together. So this is really the final stage of creativity from me.
Hmm.
And then I'll have to pass it along to, like my PR person, and then it gets mass produced and released out into the world. And then when that happens, I have no creative control over it anymore. No, that's it. And that's really hard to let go. Um, but all I can hope is that people take the time to listen to it. And then on top of that, I hope they enjoy it.
Hmm. Hmm. Okay, so how can they find you
Okay,
and know about the release?
so um, you could join my mailing list, which is on my website, which is ainsleyhamill.com. I'll probably only email you once every 2 years to let you know I've recorded an album. But you would get first dibs on signed copies, etc., if you're on my mailing list. And also I'm on all streaming sites as well. So Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, whatever, whatever. And also it really helps if people buy an album or a vinyl, but they also listen to their favorite artists on Spotify and follow them on Spotify, because yeah, a lot of venues base hiring you off of those numbers, and it's really sad, but that's the way it works.
Hmm.
And um, it really helps me out if folk give me a follow on Spotify and listen to my music there. Also, and I'm also on all social media sites at Ainsley Hamill if folk want to give me a follow, because I do genuinely chat to people on my social media. I like to chat to people and hear where they're from and what they're doing, and hear, like, especially if they're singers. I love to hear from singers. I
Hmm.
love singer stories. What you're singing about, what you're writing about. So get in touch with me.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Wow. Well, I can hardly wait for the release and also then to be able to see this all come to fruition as you hit the stage and find that voice that goes, strongly behind everything that the whole band has put together. So,
Yeah,
best
absolutely.
wishes for you.
Well,
Thank you
thanks
so
for
much.
having me, Michelle. What a time.
Ah, lovely. So, for those people listening, please take advantage of what Ainsley has said because I didn't realize the following and the importance of what you do on things like Spotify. I know with Apple as well, how you interact with the artist really does make a difference. And so please consider how you could do that and be a part of it and then pass it forward. So I'll invite you to do that. And then also stay tuned because we will make sure to give you updates and stay tuned in with, especially Ainsley, when you finally get to come over to North America, because, Cape Breton is like just waiting for you to arrive.
Oh, tell me about it. I want to come so bad. It'll be amazing when it actually does happen.
We'll get you there. Yeah. The house is ready for that party. Oh, so we'll close off today. You've got Island Vitality there. Do you want to have a sip of that? And I'm going to have the sip of the Bredor Sunset. And we're linking the roots of everything we talked about to that new vision of where this incredible album is going to take people and take your band as well.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Here's Michelle.
Thank you for listening to Be Well with Dr. Michelle Greenwell. And we wish you a really great day. Be well.